Hello everyone, welcome to Nuclei's online classes. You are here with me Rasika for Simplifying Biology. So this video is about stamen, microsporangium and pollen grains. Nothing but we are going to discuss about the male reproductive parts, the male gamete formation. Right, that's what we are going to discuss. So hope you remember the gist of the chapter. So we have finished the introduction and we are here in the pollen grain, microsporangium and microsporogenesis, the male part. Right, this is what we are going to cover in this video. It's a little complicated but interesting. Yeah. So I'll tell you first what are we going to learn. Firstly, we are going to learn about the morphology of androecium. We are going to learn about morphology of androecium, right? So let's start. Morphology of androecium. So what are the members of androecium called? If you had listened to the previous video, you would answer it properly. The members of androecium are called as stamens, right? We are going to see the structure of a stamen. So how does the stamen look like? So the stamen, it has an anther like this in the middle, right? It has an anther in the middle, and then it has a stalk, right, which attaches to the thalamus. It has a stalk like this which attaches to the thalamus, right? Now let's mark the parts. So what is this? This is your anther, right? This is your filament, right? And this is your thalamus. Thalamus is the bulged part of a flower. You will have the flower, and at the base of the flower you will have a bulged part, no? So that is your thalamus, right? So previously there was a question, which part of the filament, like how is the filament attached? The proximal end of filament is attached to what? Proximal end of filament is attached to the thalamus, or you can even say it is the petal of the flower. Petal of flower. Sometimes it is attached to the petals or sepals or tepals, something it is attached, right? In that case, it will be attached to the petal of the flower, right? So the proximal end is what is attached to the thalamus, or if it is a petal of a flower, it is the petal of the flower, right? Fine. So here you have a filament, right? Now what can you tell about the filament? Filament is just a stalk, right? You have a long stalk, so this is your filament. Correct? Anything else to tell about that? Nothing much, it's just a stalk. Next portion is this one called anther, the important part, right? Anther. So we have something to discuss about anther because it is a little important, right? Anther is bilobed. Bilobed means it has two lobes. Simple, right? It is bilobed. Second one, it is dithecous. Dithecous means, come on, decode it. Di means two, thecous means theca. So it has two theca, and the two theca are very much prominently seen with a longitudinal groove, right? So it is separated by a, so there is a theca, and this theca is separated by a longitudinal groove, right? Now what is a groove? Groove is nothing but just a depression which runs along, right? So that's a longitudinal groove. So it is dithecous. Then it is a four-sided structure. Four-sided structure means it is not like a paper flat. It has four sides, right? So it is a tetragonal structure. It is a tetragonal structure. Why do we say it is tetragonal? Because it has four sides. It has four sides, right? And in each side of this tetragonal structure, you have something called as a microsporangium. How do I say that? You have one here, 2, 3, 4. Like if you cut the anther like this, right, you will find it like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 microsporangias you will have, right? So it is 4-sided, and you will have 4 microsporangia at the corners, right? So it will have 4 corners, and all the 4 corners you will have a microsporangia. Now what happens to this microsporangia, I will tell. So this is your microsporangia. Inside that you will have a type of cell, right? Inside that you will have a type of cell. Yeah. So this microsporangia, wait. Right. So imagine this is your microsporangia. Inside this you will have a type of cells, right? So the cells are called as sporogenous cells or sporogenous tissues, right? And this is your microsporangium. This is your microsporangium, right? You know what? The final products of male or the male gamete is nothing but pollen grains. I hope you know that. So this sporogenous tissue is the one, right? This sporogenous tissue is the one that will develop into a pollen grain, right? And this microsporangium is the one which will develop into the pollen sac, right? Inside microsporangium you have sporogenous tissue. After development, inside pollen sac you will have pollen grains. Simple as that, right? Yes. So your next point will be microsporangia will develop into pollen sacs, right? So microsporangia develop into pollen sac, right? And pollen sacs will be filled with pollen grains, right? Pollen sacs are filled with pollen grains, right? Pollen sacs are filled with pollen grains. Now, what is microsporangium filled with? Microsporangium is filled with sporogenous tissue, right? Microsporangium is filled with sporogenous tissue. Right? And this is when anther is young, in a young anther. Right? And pollen sacs will be filled with pollen grains. This is in a matured anther. Right? Now, we learned about the structure of the stamen as a whole. In that we understood anther is important, so we learned about anther. In that we understood that microsporangium is important, so we started learning about microsporangia, right? So let's learn a little more about microsporangium, right? Microsporangium is singular, microsporangia is plural, right? So this microsporangium, what's the shape of this? This is circular in outline, right? It is circular in outline, yes. Then it has 4 layers. 4 wall layers is present when it comes to microsporangium. I'll tell you what are they. The first layer is epidermis, right? Epidermis is the outermost layer, right? Epidermis. And the next one is a layer called as endothecium, right? Endothecium. Then inside that you have middle layers, and the innermost one is called as tapetum, right? Now we have to learn the functions of this as well, right? So the outer 3 layers, epidermis, endothecium and middle layers, together they have the function of protection. What is it protecting? Inside microsporangium, what do you have? Sporogenous tissue, which is going to become the pollen grains. It has to protect it, right? So these three has the function of protection and also dehiscence of anther. Dehiscence of anther. What is dehiscence of anther? Dehiscence is nothing but the anther will burst so that pollen grains will be released, right? So that is dehiscence. So for both of this, these three layers are helpful. Then what is the layer of the innermost cell? The innermost cell is responsible for, right? It is responsible for nourishment. Nourishment, and also you can find that these have dense protoplasm. Dense protoplasm, and they are also multinucleated. Multinucleated. Fine. See, this is a pattern that you are going to observe. Listen very carefully. Whenever you have a very important cell which is going to give rise to a gamete, or it is a zygote or an embryo, cells like that, they will always have some cells nearby which is multicellular, and it will always provide nutrition. Right? This you can observe in plants, animals, humans, everything you can observe, right? So here for the sporogenous tissue, to nourish the sporogenous tissue, you have tapetum, the cells of tapetum, which is for nourishment and which has dense protoplasm and multinucleated condition, right? So this is about microsporangium. Now, the next important part, two things about microsporangium, very simple. It's circular in outline, it has 4 layers. What are the layers? Epidermis, endothecium, middle layers and tapetum, right? Next, we are going to learn about microsporogenesis. What is microsporogenesis? What is microsporogenesis? So, you will have sporogenous tissue. Right? So sporogenous tissue is nothing but, ma'am, what ma'am? We learned only about sporogenous cells. Where are sporogenous tissue coming from? Cells form tissue, right? All those sporogenous cells together, I'm calling it as a tissue, simple as that, right? So this sporogenous tissue, there is one more name for this. It is also called as potential pollen or the microspore mother cell. I'm writing it as MMC, right? So this one, it will undergo meiosis, right? Meiosis is the reduction division. It will undergo meiosis and it will form the microspore tetrad. Microspore tetrad, it is nothing but, I told you as a result of meiosis, you will have 4 cells formed, right? This is meiosis. One cell, it will undergo division and it will form 4 different cells. Right? And the chromosome number will also be reduced. The chromosome number of the parent will be 2n, whereas the chromosome number of the daughters will be n. Right? So sporogenous tissue, of course, it is 2n, and microspore tetrad, it is n. Right? Why am I calling it as tetrad is because these 4 cells formed, they are not yet separated. They are still as a cluster. It is either like this or like this in a cell. Right, so it is still being as a cluster, right? That is microspore tetrad. After some time, this will dehydrate and the tetrads will dissociate, forming the microspore. Microspore or nothing but the pollen grain. That's all. And what will be the ploidy of pollen grain? It is going to be haploid. Yes. So this process is what you call it as microsporogenesis. One more important thing. Do you know why is it called as a potential pollen or a microspore mother cell? Because, see, it is able to give rise to a pollen grain. That's why it is called as a potential pollen. It has the potential to give rise to a pollen grain. That's why it is called as potential pollen. It is also called as the microspore mother cell because it is the mother of this microspore, right? So it is able to produce that microspore mother cell. Even when a cell is dividing, this is called as the parent or this is called as the mother, whereas the newly formed cells are called as the daughter cells. Yes, so that is your microsporogenesis. Microsporogenesis is simply the production of pollen grains from sporogenous tissue. right? Yeah. So here we ended up about pollen grain, right? Now let's learn about the pollen grains, right? So we are going to learn about the morphology of pollen grains. How is the pollen grains looking? And one more thing about the microsporangium, that is inside each microsporangium, do you know how many pollen grains can be produced? Thousands of pollen grains. Just for some few fertilization, you can produce thousands of pollen grains in one microsporangium. Thousands of pollen grains are present, right? Yeah, so now let's move on to the morphology of pollen grains, right? So let's start with the shape. What is the shape of pollen grains? Pollen grains are circular, or let me say it is spherical, right? And what will be the diameter? It is 20 to 50 μm in diameter is the size of this pollen grain, right? Now it is double walled. Double walled means it has two walls, right? And what are the walls? The inner wall is called as intine, inside, intine. Outer wall is called as exine, right? Outer, right? So it has exine and intine, right? Before learning about intine and exine, let's learn about one beautiful material that is present in our earth called sporopollenin. Right? Now, the sporopollenin, it is an organic material. It's the most resistive organic material. First thing that you have to remember. What is that? It is the most resistive organic material. Right? Most resistive means what? It cannot be degraded by almost anything, right? So there is no enzyme that can degrade sporopollenin is found so far. So what can you write? No enzyme can degrade sporopollenin, right? Second thing is that it can withstand strong alkalis and strong acids, right? So it can withstand strong alkalis and acids, right? And this is one of the major reason. Okay, before that, so this is about sporopollenin. Remember these three things. It is the most resistant organic material known. There is no enzyme that can degrade sporopollenin is so far found, and it can withstand strong alkalis and acids. Now, this sporopollenin, this most significant sporopollenin is present in the exine. Sporopollenin is present in exine, which is the reason why pollen grains can be stored as fossils. There are pollen grains which are stored for 10,000 years. Can you imagine? 10,000 years pollen grains have been stored, and the reason for that is the presence of sporopollenin, because it is being very resistive. Nothing is being allowed to affect that pollen grain, right? So it is sporopollenin is present in the exine of pollen grains, right? Then it has a fascinating array of pattern, which means it is very nice to see. The arrangement of sporopollenin in the exine is very remarkable to see, right? And when you see the exine, imagine this is your exine, right? There are some regions of the pollen grains where exine is absent or where sporopollenin is absent. That is called as the germ pore. Right? So what is germ pore? The regions where sporopollenin is absent is called as the germ pore, right? Now let's talk about intine. I'll just tell you what is intine made up of. Intine is made up of simply cellulose, like any other plant, cellulose and pectose. That's all. right? Cellulose and pectose. And this is the very reason why exine is preserved as fossils. What is the reason? Because of the presence of sporopollenin. So we just learned about the morphology of pollen grains. We learned that it is circular in shape, spherical in shape. Its diameter is 20 to 50 μm. Then it has two walls, exine and intine. Intine, simply it is made up of cellulose and pectose. Exine is made up of sporopollenin. What about sporopollenin? It can degrade, it cannot be degraded by any enzyme. It's the strongest organic material known, and since sporopollenin is present in exine only, it is called as, or it is being saved as fossils, right? It is being preserved as fossils. Yeah. Now, next, before that, let's see about the pollen grain. How does it look like? How many cells it has? Actually, the pollen grains has two cells. It has a bigger cell. This bigger cell is called as the vegetative cell, right? And this smaller cell is called as the generative cell, right? So pollen grains has how many cells? Generally it is shed, which means it is when dehiscence happen and pollen grains are released, it is released in the two cell stage, right? And what are the two cells? It is the vegetative cell and the generative cell. Now see, which is bigger, vegetative or generative? Vegetative cell is bigger, right? This is bigger. Generative cell is smaller, right? Vegetative, vegetable, food, right? So vegetative cell contains a lot of food reserve materials for the generative cells, right? So it is a food reserve, right? And what about the generative cell? Generative cell is the one which produces the male gametes and fuses and becomes the zygote, gives the next generation. That's why it is called as the generative cell, right? That's why it is called as the generative cell. So yeah, these are the two cells that is present in a pollen grain when it is dispersed, right? Okay, now one more important thing, flowering plants. Flowering plants. What is the heading of our chapter? Sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Flowering plants means angiosperms, right? So, in 60% of the angiosperms, when the pollen grains is dispersed, it is dispersed in the two-celled stage. Two-celled stage means one vegetative cell plus one generative cell, correct? And in the remaining angiosperms, so can I say 40% around angiosperms, it is dispersed at three-celled stage. Right? Three-celled stage means it has one vegetative cell and two generative cell. Ma'am, how is that possible? What happens is that you have a vegetative cell and the generative cell. After some time, what happens is that this generative cell alone will undergo mitosis and it will form two generative cells. How is this happened? The generative cell will undergo mitosis, right? Let me make it a little more clear. Will undergo mitosis. So as a result, you will get two generative cells, right? So that is happening in the remaining of angiosperms. So you can ask, ma'am, then what happens to this 60% of the angiosperms? This three-celled stage or this generative cell is not undergoing mitosis. No, it is undergoing, but that is after it enters into a female reproductive part of the flower. That is after it enters into the stigma, it will undergo this division. But certain other plants, it will undergo this division while it is dispersed itself, right? So that's what the point itself is. How are they dispersed? During dispersal, some are dispersed at two-cell stage, some are dispersed at three-cell stage, right? And the three cells are one vegetative cell and two generative cell. How do you get two generative cell? Because one generative cell will undergo mitosis. Right? Yes. So next we'll learn something about pollen grains. How are we using it directly, right? Pollen grains has good effects also and bad effects also. Pollen grains are used as supplements Pollen grains are also causing diseases, allergies, right? So we are going to see both of that. So pollen grains and allergens are nothing but anything which causes an allergy is called as allergens, right? So this pollen grain, it can cause allergies, right? It can cause bronchial respiratory issues like asthma and all. It can be caused by pollen grains, right? One example that is given in your textbook is a species called as Parthenium species, right? What is that? Parthenium species, right? This Parthenium species, the common name is carrot grass. Carrot grass. Right, so this is not of our native, this is not present in India. It came to India with an imported wheat, came as a contaminant with imported wheat, right? Came as a contaminant with imported wheat. Yeah, and it caused a lot of allergies. Now pollen grain as a food supplement. See, pollen grains are used, it has high nutritive value, right? High nutritive value, and it is used by athletes and race horses because it is found that it is increasing the potential of these athletes and race horses, right? So it increases, so actually it is very rich in nutrients and all, that's why it is seen to increase the performance of race horses and athletes, right? So it is very rich in nutritive value. Then you can find these pollen grains as supplements in the form of syrups, right? Syrups also you can find, as tablets also you can find, right? These two types you can find pollen grain, right? Yeah. Now one more is pollen viability, right? Viability means how long can it survive. That is, you have a pollen grain now, will it last for 3 months? That is, after 3 months if you sow it, or if you not sow, sowing is for seed, after 3 months if you are germinating it, and if you are trying to produce a seed or fertilize it, is it still working? That is viability, right? So we are going to see about the viabilities of some pollen grains of some certain plants, right? Before that, the factors that affects pollen viability is temperature, right, and humidity. Majorly, external factors will include temperature and humidity, and of course genetic things according to the plants, that is also there, right? So in plants like rice and wheat, the major food crops of India, right? So rice and wheat, it can just last only for 30 minutes, gone. Not even a day. After 30 minutes, viability is gone. After 30 minutes, if you try, gone. Nothing happening, right? In certain families like Rosaceae, Leguminosae, and Solanaceae, right? It can last for several months. Several months means almost a year, maybe. It can last for months. It depends upon what type of plant it is, but then generally it is for several months, right? Then you also have something called as pollen bank. Pollen bank. So pollen bank is a place wherein you store pollen grains in 196 degrees Celsius, minus 196 degrees Celsius in the liquid nitrogen, right? And this can be for years. And you know for what this is used? This is used for crop breeding programs. Crop breeding programs. Actually, for animals and all, this semen and sperm is collected in the banks, right? The same way you have seed bank in which seeds are collected. The same way you have pollen banks wherein pollen grains are collected, right? So these three also you have to remember. That's about the viability, right? So if I have to recall, yes, yeah, so we started with the morphology of andrecium. We saw the structure of stamen and the structure of anther. In that we understood that anther is of more importance because it has microsporangia in it, and inside microsporangia you have sporogenous tissue, right? So sporogenous cells will become pollen grains after maturation, whereas microsporangium will become the pollen sac after maturation. Then we saw about the structure of sporangium and its walls. Then we saw about microsporogenesis, how is the pollen grains formed. Then about morphology of pollen grains. Then how is the pollen grains dispersed, we saw. And then pollen grains as an allergen and pollen grains as a food supplement also we saw. Then finally we also saw the viabilities of pollen grains, right? Now let's discuss the diagrams that is present in NCERT, right? So this is the diagram of the pollen, this is the diagram of the stamen. So this is your filament, right? And this is your anther. And then this is the structure of, so now you're cutting anther like this. So the cross section looks like this. See, it looks like this. And this is the longitudinal groove that we told, right? And you will have the microsporangium in all the four ends. Yeah. So this is the structure of, this is actually a young microsporangium. This is a microsporangium which has undergone dehiscence, which means it has dispersed. See, you can find a breaking hole here, right? And this one is the enlarged view. This view is this, right? So you will have the outermost layer epidermis, next to that endothecium, next to that middle layer. So middle layers is more than one layer. And then inside that, this one is called as tapetum. And in tapetum you can find small dots, multinucleated condition, no. And inside that you will find the microspore mother cell, right? Then this is actually the picture of a microspore tetrad, right? And this is the development of a pollen grain, right? From a single cell, then you have, see, two big vacuoles, then all these cell division happen, and finally you end up with a vegetative cell and generative cell, two cells. See, two cell stage. Then this is the electron micrograph pictures, electron micrograph picture of pollen grain. That is, you put pollen grains under the microscope, fully you zoom in, you find it like this. Remember, we learned that it has fascinating array of patterns, so it looks something like this. And this is the picture of the pollen grain products that you can see, that is available as supplements, right? Yeah, so this is a picture of that. This is also given in your NCERT. And then so next we'll discuss some questions. So you will have the question number here. If you have any doubts or you need to have a even more detailed explanation of these questions, you can anytime DM us. Please note down the question number alone. Yeah. Okay. By which of the following division male gametes or sperms are developed from generative cell? Generative cell undergoes mitosis, right? Mitosis and forms two generative cells. Right, so the answer is mitotic division, right? Then one more question. Bilobed character, bilobed means it has two lobes. Bilobed character of anther is very distinct in the, so when you have anther like this, only when you cut it like this you can find that bilobed structure very well. So it is the transverse section. So it is in the transverse section. When you see the diagrams of NCERT, you can find TS of, LS of, right? So TS means transverse section. Third question, the microspores as they are formed are arranged in a cluster of 4 cells, which is called as the microspore tetrad. As the anthers mature and hydrate, the microspore will dissociate from each other and develop into very simple, it develops into pollen grains. Female gametophyte, no. Male gametophyte, yes. It is both A and C, right? Because pollen grains and male gametophyte means the same. One more. How many pollen grains are produced by anther? Having 4 microspores. See, if it is 1 microspore, you will produce 4 pollen grains, right? So here you have 4. So it will be producing 4 into 4, 16 pollen grains. So the answer is 16. Yeah, if you remember that chart, you can easily answer. Last question. Proximal end of the filament. This is the previous year question. Proximal end of the filament is attached to thalamus or petal of the flower. Petal of the flower. Right? So with that, the first we have did a complete session about the male parts of the flower, microsporogenesis. We have produced the gametes. Now we have to produce the female gametes and fertilize them, right? So let's meet in the next video regarding the carpels, megasporangium and megasporogenesis. Thank you.